We're super excited to have some incredible people here in the room. Besides all of you, school leaders, educators, parents, community members, school design support providers. I would be remiss if I did not introduce a luminary in our midst, who's David Silver. Where's David? David Silver's right there. So David is Mayor Libby Schaaf's Education Policy Director, and is this the first time that position has actually existed? First time in a long, long time. And I think it is a sign of the changes that are starting to really happen in Oakland, where lots of folks, including elected officials, including people like the mayor, are really starting to pay attention to what's going on in Oakland and the promise that we have to really fulfill this vision that I think that we all share, which is that every child in every neighborhood of Oakland gets access to a great public education. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So there's actually a great and storied history of folks who are interested in creating great schools in Oakland. And we're really privileged to be joined tonight by three folks that have been part of this work in the last really significant wave of new school creation in Oakland. And the great thing is that these are people who've been literally on the ground, rolled up their sleeves, and got stuff done for kids. So I want to introduce our three panelists. Emma Paulino from OCO. David Castillo, who is currently the head of school at Urban Montessori Charter School. And Laura Flaxman, who is on the design team for the Multilingual Network. And generally often consulted for many different things. Laura. But that's just a brief introduction. I will let each of them give you a little bit more of a quick background on their involvement historically in school design in Oakland.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Again, my name is David Castillo. I'm the current head of school at Urban Montessori Charter. We're in our 4th year of operation, and this is my 2nd year there as the head of school. So even as a school in its 4th year of operation, still very much in startup mode for a school, for the lifespan of the school. Prior to Urban Montessori, I worked for the statewide charter association as the regional director in Oakland. So I became very well acquainted with all of our public schools and sort of the political landscape in Oakland. And prior to that, I was a founding teacher and principal for 5 years at Oakland Unity High School, a high-performing high school in the Millsboro area. I live in East Oakland. I work in East Oakland. This is the furthest west I've been in a while.
Hello, my name is Laura Flaxman, and I came to Oakland in 2000 and shortly afterwards started Life Academy and was the founding principal of Life Academy. And then went to the Coalition of Essential Schools and started a bunch of schools around the country, including Oakland's Lighthouse Charter High School. And then also started the Oakland Education Fund, which used to be called the Oakland Small Autonomous Schools Foundation, with a couple colleagues out here, and then started Arise High School most recently. And at the moment, as Gloria said, my daughter is a student at Manzanita C, and I am on that design team to start a middle and high school pathway for her. Oh, how come I'm not hearing the other Manzanita people? And also starting a college. So anyone who's interested in that next level, let me know.
So I'm Emma Paulino, a community organizer. I started I would say 20 years ago, and I had the honor of being part of the design of 3 schools, and now in my 4th one at Fremont, but I was part of the design team of Arise, Ascend first. Arise, and Community School for Creative Education, the only water public school here in Oakland. Then now, again, in the proposal team with Fremont High School. So I started as a friend of 3 students who went to the Oakland public schools, and that's the main reason why I got involved with education.
Incredible folks up here. So when you look back at all of your involvement in school design and creating new schools, what are most proud of? Let's start with you, Emma.
I will say the parents' role into this process around building something that will impact their own children and around the fact that in each one of the schools, Arise, Ascend, and Community School, it was built into the kind of culture around parent involvement and parent voice to be really like in the center of the decisions of the school. For me, that's something that I really feel proud of it. It's not only that, when we started Ascend 15 years ago, that was a mission back in 15 years ago, but there's a mission that people continue carrying on. They own that. That's a very deep culture. And that applies for the 3 school, including Arise and Community School. Whether, the numbers of parents' involvement goes up and down, but it continues to be in the center of what they believe. And it's really important because, again, when you build something around the culture that you want to create, you have to continue. No matter who came around, parents should be the center of the voice for their parents because that is the one. And I truly believe that the people close to the kids should be the people who made the decisions around what affects the kids.
So what I'm most proud of, number one, I was the first generation in my family to go to college, and then the work that I did in education was in a school that was designed for what would be first generation college students. And I also worked in Mission High, I worked in Havens Court in the late 90s. So I saw a lot of different schools, different environments, and decided that in order to create a school environment based on what we were hearing from families was high academic expectations and high behavioral expectations, extended school day, summer school, all these things, we needed to create a charter, and so we did. And by the time we graduated our first class, second, third class, we were probably upwards of 90% of our seniors graduating, and still to this day, graduating and going on to college. So I think hearing the community, knowing exactly what our parents wanted, 90% free reduced lunch, Latino, African American families, just knowing what they wanted and being able to have the flexibility to provide that and to lay the foundation for a program that still exists and is growing. Oakland Unity has a middle school now. I won't talk about Urban Montessori, it's another story.
I'm most proud of just having contributed to creating some different options and some high quality options for high school students in Oakland, in the city, and the successes. I mean, certainly the oldest school of mine, Life Academy, they've just done a lot of really tremendous work, and then on a sort of more individual level that then ends up being a group too. I have so many Facebook friends who are former Life students who are all over the health professions and beyond, and just seeing their successes and Arise too, just all those who have just now recently, in the last 2 years, our first 2 classes graduated from college, and they're all doing great things. A lot of them are educators back in Oakland, so I'm super proud of both the collective story of the high school options and those individual stories.
That's awesome. Let's get a round of applause for that. Students and families. So, given all the exciting activity that has happened in Oakland over the years around school design, can you just think about, you all have been around this for a long time. What were the conditions then when you first started Life and Unity, and which was the first book, Ascend, that you saw that helped those schools, those seedlings get planted and be able to take root and thrive? And then contrast it or compare it to, do we see those conditions today?
I would say the autonomy that the schools had back then to make the decisions based on the kids' needs create a great opportunity to really build up in what people believe. I would say that without that, it's really disempowering people on the ground. People who work, the educators and teachers, the parents who are close to the kids, who know what the kids need. And basically now it's more like top-down. So I would say those decisions, when they were took away, it is really difficult for a school like Ascend that was part of the school district and step away from the school district. So, to be transparent, that's for me one of the conditions that I believe were so important and continue to be important. And how can we rebuild that, and how can we give that opportunity to the people, again, who is close to the kids, to make the decisions. I will say the other thing is around the support before from the school district side around the incubation process was so critical. I will see like the schools that went through that process are the schools that are very successful. And the environment was different before than now. I would say now there is opportunities, but there is so much work to do yet in regards to, how can we really do this together from the place where we center everything and what is important for the children. Not around the agendas for the adults. What is good for me, what is good for this organization, what is good for this. It's more like, let us really put our heads together and see what is good for the kids.
So based on my experience, I would, I think for me, the autonomy piece is also critical, being able to organize a group of adults around a mission based on what we're hearing from either students or community members, creating a school, and if that school happens to be a charter. Most of my experiences in the charter world, I think the first my charter experience goes back to about 2000, 2001. And we had autonomy, but even back then there wasn't a whole lot of accountability. And so we had autonomy, other schools had autonomies, but there wasn't the other side of it, the accountability, the transparency around accountability. So I think for charters, we still have autonomy. There's always the politics, and the pendulum is swinging constantly. But I think the accountability is, if we are the recipient of public funds, if we're going to wrap around a mission, provide services, provide programming for students, for adults, for a community, there has to be some accountability on the backside. And I feel like, at least in this city, that's the one thing that has sort of changed, and I would say that that's a positive.
I probably echo a lot of what Emma said, and that it was that the climate and that guarantee of autonomies was really essential. And a lot of them were pulled back, or all of them were pulled back for the most part over the years. And that's a huge difference. That's kind of devastating. And then the other piece, again, echoing what Emma said. I mean, I first met Emma back in those days, partly because OCO was this huge partner in the process, and between what was then BASIS, which is now National Equity Project, and OCO, there was just a very strong focus on an equity lens for all of the teams, and also on parent involvement, and that was a mandatory part. And in addition to that, both of those entities offered just a tremendous amount of support and really educated people like me, on the importance of the different things that they brought, and certainly, on parent involvement and what that can look like and did look like here. And I don't think any of that is set up right now.
Laura, that's a great segue. Why don't you all talk a little bit about, when you think about the success of your initial schools that you've designed in your life, which is a lot, between just in this little group, what skills or knowledge did your team have that helped you be successful? And what support were you able to get from other groups or people that helped really kind of round out and ensure your success? Let's start with you, Laura, since we talked about that.
So, I know one thing, so Life Academy, I always say, was sort of a part hybrid conversion school, because it grew out of the Health Academy of what was then Fremont High School, which is where I was an assistant principal when I first came out here. And I think there's pitfalls of having, as much as we're all, yay Oakland, yay everybody who's a part of this community currently, it's so easy to fall into patterns and to only dream as much as you have personally experienced. So I thought one of the things that was really essential in both teams, both the Life and Arise teams, was this having a group of people who had different experiences, and we created different experiences where we were able to see what was happening in other places and just shake up our own mental models of what was possible and what the designs might look like. So I think that's huge, that perspective piece. And sometimes those partners can help with that perspective piece. And then well, the support, is huge, and some of it is, again, and the National Equity Project continues to play that role for people, but just, how do you really keep equity front and center? It's just so easy to go into things for the wrong reasons and to end up even inadvertently recreating, exactly the same kind of, thing that's existed forever. There was just an article about high schools, that high school summit, just very critical about the White House High School Summit and how, basically everybody's talking about like their biggest innovations look exactly the way high schools have been done for the last, centuries. And so I just think that shaking that up and with a really clear focus on what needs to look different and why, what you're doing it for. And then again, like how do you involve community in different ways, parents in different ways, and that's some of the beauty of the history in Oakland that's unique to Oakland as compared to other parts of the country, but also, not as strong from the sort of designers or certainly from the school district right now.
I think speaking to the either new school or school redesign piece, the most successful teams that I've seen or been a part of have engaged individuals from all walks of life. So really thinking about diverse founding teams, diverse startup teams, not just in like where we come from, but engaging young people, engaging students, engaging families, engaging experts. There's a place at the table for for the research set, for the designers, but making sure that you're really hearing from people that have done the work and have succeeded, have done the work and failed, but also from families and from students that are about to go into a K-5 or a 6-12, whatever it is. So what are the hopes and fears and dreams of the families and children that are about to attend this school that you're thinking about designing or creating? I think making sure that you are being honest and hearing from as many voices as possible.
Yeah, I will just add to what both of them say. The fact that back then, the belief and understanding around parents and community value around what the community and parents add to the effort and to the work. Like Sen went through so many challenges when we opened the school. Just the fact that we didn't have even a building, that was like a crime. The place where we put these students, and the parents organizing all the time until we had the new building. And basically, the school principal didn't have to do much other than just supporting the parents' work. So Jason and Larissa really value that, and in order for them really to survive inside the system, was so critical, the role of the parents and the role of the community, because everything that happened at that school, it was like, it must go through the parents first. It was not in the other way. So I will say that kind of support, that kind of relationship, to me is very critical, because we can design a beautiful school, we can talk a lot and what we put into the documents, but what gives life is really what is important, and where the challenge, where you really face the challenges, and not only give life. I remember I was really naive when we opened a Sen. I thought, oh, well, we have the school already, we opened, blah, blah, blah. And after that, I realized how much more we have to do. And that, without the partnership and relationship that we had, there was no way for us to really come through the place where we are right now at the Sen. Using just one example, but that is for every other school.
We have a bunch of parents in the room. Yes? Oh, come on, there's more parents. And how many of you want to be engaged in making sure that your children's school is awesome?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So, Emma, if you were a school leader, or advice to school leaders here, how do they make sure that parents are really genuinely engaged?
I would say, and I hope I do not offend anyone here. I just love to be transparent and say what I feel and what I believe. If you really want to create something that is going to serve the children, you must take into account the voice of the parents. You must put resources and helping them to understand the system. I was talking to one of the parents while I was driving here because we have this, a bunch of ministers that are coming to Fremont. Then, and I was telling her, if you as a parent will understand how much power you have in this system, I believe that that's the education system is the only place where parents really have real power. The problem is that we do not believe on that. The problem is that we do not have the opportunity to the parents. I always say to the educators, you will have a solid group of parents here that you will provide the resources for them to be developed. They will cover your back all the time. Your job will be less stressful. But if you don't believe that, well, that's where we are at right now. Always trying to fight back. But you have to fight the system that is basically you work for them. I'm not trying to put down the school district or demonize them. All I'm saying is the systems are so difficult. And we do not allow the parents to feel that power. We just want to use them because they have to sign the SSC documents that they have to sign. I mean, we're going to just go into the same direction. That's my opinion.
Well, let's talk about some of the other best practices that you all have seen, Laura and David, as people who've been school leaders, about what school leaders do to engage families.
Yeah, so I'll speak to my current role at Urban Montessori Charter School. So our school mirrors the city of Oakland's demographics, almost to within 5 percentage points for all the different groups that live in Oakland. And so we serve families from, deep East Oakland all the way up to the hills. And so that, I think, number one, for me as a leader, was a very challenging role to step into. And I think that, parent engagement for me in that setting means that for 100% of our families, if I'm hearing from, a group of 10 or 12 or even 20 or 30, I always have to consider who is talking to me? Who is raising the issue? What is that specific group? And does that really reflect the entire community? And if it doesn't, then we've got to go back and sort of reinvent the wheel and think about how we're doing outreach to the full community. Because just like, as a city as a whole, our school as one organization, we can easily start to, I think, recreate the systems that we're all trying to undo. So it's a challenge. I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I think definitely a work in progress.
So both of my high schools were involved with partnerships with Oakland community organizations, and so we had local organizing committees at both schools that met frequently and often were involved in sort of broader OCO initiatives that went beyond our individual school. And that was just really great, even as a way of training my parent leaders in different ways. And then also at both schools, we hired a parent coordinator, and that role was really key. And then one of the things that our Arise parent coordinator did was have these coffee Mondays every week, and just bring in parents on a regular basis and have these discussions about things that are going on. And then I think it's also some of these other structures, like how we did student-led conferences, these bridge presentations. I keep looking at G, who succeeded me at Arise, and how that happened. The exhibition nights and bringing parents in to see, just all the different ways that we invited parents into the life of the school. I think those structures are really important too.
That's great. I want to come back to Laura, something that you said earlier about innovation and how important it is for us to basically not just kind of recreate the old wheel, the old, factory model of education that we know doesn't work for many kids and probably isn't what we need for the, this century going forward. So I wonder, when you think about the innovations that you're starting to see in schools now, what are the things that you're most excited about?
So there's definitely a lot of talk about, so the new term is personalized learning, right? That's what everybody's sort of focused around right now, and that can look a number of different ways. I think for a lot of schools it means technology. For other schools it means ways that teachers are engaging with students and students are engaging with other students throughout the school day. So I'm definitely excited about a lot of the innovation and some of the new models, and some of these aren't really new ideas, right? Some of them have been around for a long time. The large open format classroom goes back to the early 1970s, and Montessori is 100 years old. So I think, some of the newer models that are starting up or being recreated, for me, I always look back, and especially a town like Oakland is a really good example. We can start a very innovative school, depending on whatever the model is, something that people haven't seen, it's new and fresh. But for me, the question I always ask is, for the students that are attending the school, as much as innovative as we can be, hard as people want to push, we always have to remember and ensure that we're safeguarding the academic success of all the kids. So are you doing that for all your kids that are possibly not being served or have traditionally not been served in any school system, whether it be district or charter? So the innovation has to come with the safety check of, are our most vulnerable students also being successful in whatever kind of innovative model it happens to be.
So I think my short answer is that I'm pretty disappointed in the level of innovation or lack thereof. I mean, I sort of agree with that article. And so that's my short, depressing answer. I think the more upbeat answer is that, I think there are some glimmers of some exciting things happening. I used to take my teachers to High Tech High, all my new teachers, just because they just do such a fabulous job of project-based learning. And probably the most encouraging, exciting thing that I've heard in a while is starting to do some work with the Buck Institute of Education, which has a focus on project-based learning. And their business is skyrocketing. There's so many people, and actually this is true with Big Picture too. Another place that does some innovative work, again, especially in secondary education, where there's a real need and continues to be. And so the fact that more and more people are seeking those organizations out, I think is very encouraging.
I think it's interesting because I actually think Laura, you and David both kind of touched on this idea that sometimes the most innovative thing you can do is actually just take an idea that's been around for a while and implement it really, really well so it actually has a great impact on it. So thanks for raising that. Okay, one last question for each of you. In the interest of keeping this concise, I'm going to ask you in one sentence, or a tweet, I guess, what's your advice to the school designers in this room?
So my one sentence is to really think about how to include students and student voice, and they have so much untapped potential and so few people really use them. And I was a little skeptical about bringing in our elementary school students into our meetings and into our team, and our design work, just because of the age, and I'm used to high school, and it's fabulous. So whatever age, I think bringing in that student voice is huge.
I would suggest being visionary, especially given the comments from the last question. Be visionary, be bold, also be humble, be nimble, and think about how, especially in an innovative school environment that may or may not have been done before, how you are going to support your teachers. Don't underestimate the politics, and I think No Child Left Behind was officially killed today, right? So we're getting quite loose.
I would say for me, again, I'm going to go back around. Make sure that you include parents and students, and at the same time, be surrounded by people who have the same vision as you. That's really critical. If you do not have the same vision, you're not going to get nowhere, because people are going to be walking to different directions and it's going to take nowhere where the kids need to be taken.
Thank you. Well, in a minute, I'm